The night my brother put his hand around my throat, he was asking me for $18,000. One second I was standing in Mom's kitchen telling Ryan I would pay her ALS bills directly if he showed me the invoices. The next, my back hit the wall and his hand closed under my jaw. I remember trying to say his name and hearing nothing. I remember the kitchen light blurring. I remember Mom shouting from the living room in a voice ALS had already weakened. Then Ryan let go and told me I had pushed him. 2 days later, Mom and I opened the account Dad had created for her care. He had left $180,000. The balance was $384.17. Ryan had spent years being praised as the son who stayed, while I was the daughter who could always afford to help. By the time I finally asked where the money had gone, that arrangement had become so normal that even I had stopped seeing what it was doing to us. To understand why one question about an account ended with my brother's hand around my throat, I have to go back to how we got there. Mom had been diagnosed with ALS a little over 2.5 years earlier. Before that, Diane Morgan was the kind of woman who could spend 6 hours rearranging a garden bed and then complain that everybody else was lazy. She volunteered at the library. She made soup for neighbors she barely liked. She walked faster than I did and hated waiting for anybody. ALS took those things in pieces. First, she started tripping. Then one hand became weak. Then stairs became a negotiation. By that October, she was using a power wheelchair most of the day. Her voice had softened and slowed. She needed help getting dressed and transferring safely. Nights were getting harder. But her mind was still Mom's, sharp, opinionated, stubborn. She knew exactly what she liked and exactly who she thought should provide it. Ryan lived with her. He was 38, 6 years older than me, and had moved back into the family house after Dad died 4 years earlier. At first, everybody praised him for it. I did too. He helped with Mom's appointments. He dealt with contractors when the bathroom needed grab bars and a roll-in shower. He coordinated medications, groceries, wheelchair repairs, insurance calls, and the endless calendar that comes with a progressive disease. I lived 80 minutes away and worked as an operations manager for a regional packaging company. I made good money, around $92,000 a year, but I was not rich. I had a mortgage, retirement contributions, a car payment, and the ordinary boring expenses nobody sees when they decide you make good money. Still, when Mom's needs increased, I helped. At first, Ryan asked for $1,200 here, $1,500 there. Then it became regular. He told me which expenses weren't covered: home modifications, extra help, transportation, supplies, a better mattress, a backup battery for equipment. Some months I sent $1,800, some months $2,500. Twice I sent more than $4,000 because he said something urgent had come up. I didn't track it closely at first. That was my first mistake. My second was thinking that because Ryan was doing the physical work, he deserved not to be questioned. The family had a phrase for our arrangement. Ryan gave his time. I gave what I could afford. Mom said it so often it stopped sounding like an opinion. You can afford it, Claire. Sometimes she said it gently. Sometimes like a fact. Sometimes like a compliment. You can afford it. You can handle it. You're doing well. Your brother is the one here every day. I told myself it was fair. Then, on a Tuesday in October, Ryan called me at work and said Mom needed a new level of home care immediately. Not next month, he said. Now. I stepped into an empty conference room and shut the door. What changed? She almost fell during a transfer last night. The ALS clinic has been telling us we need more help. I can't keep doing nights alone. That part sounded reasonable. More than reasonable. It scared me. How much? There was a pause. 1,800? 18,000. I actually laughed once because my brain rejected the number. Ryan didn't. Don't do that. I'm not doing anything. 18,000 for what? Agency deposit, increased hours, equipment, a few things we've been putting off. Send me the invoices. Another pause. What? Send me the invoices. If Mom needs it, I'll pay the provider directly. His voice changed, not louder, flatter. Just transfer it to me. Ryan, I'm not sending $18,000 into your checking account. It's not my checking account. It's Mom's care account. Fine. Then send me the statements too. He exhaled hard into the phone. I don't have time for this. That sentence bothered me more than the amount. Dad had left money specifically for Mom. After he died, most of what he could set aside for her care had been placed in a trust. I remembered the number because Dad had repeated it during one of the last family meetings before his heart surgery. $180,000. It wasn't a fortune. Dad had been clear about that. It was a cushion, something to keep Mom safe if she needed help later. Later had arrived. So why was Ryan asking me for $18,000? I said, use the trust. There was silence. Then he said, come over. I should have heard the warning in those 2 words. I went after work. Mom was in the living room watching a cooking show she didn't really care about. Her wheelchair was angled toward the television, a fleece blanket over her knees. Ryan met me in the kitchen. He looked exhausted. He had dark circles under his eyes, and there were 3 days of stubble on his face. For 1 minute, I felt guilty. That was how it always worked. Ryan looked tired, and suddenly every question I had felt selfish. He started explaining the care situation, the agency, night help, the equipment, the things he had delayed because he was trying to save money. I listened. Then I said, "Okay, show me the bill." His jaw tightened. "Claire," I said, "I'll help. You always have to turn everything into a process. I work in operations. Processes are literally my job. This isn't work, this is Mom. Then it should be even easier to show me what Mom needs." He stepped closer. "You have no idea what it costs to keep her here. I know what I've sent. You send checks and go home." That hurt because it was partly true. I said, "And you've told me all year the trust was there for the bigger stuff. You think ALS waits for your spreadsheet? Stop. Just show me the trust statement." He stared at me. For the first time I saw fear before anger. It was fast, almost nothing. His eyes moved toward the hallway and back. That was the moment my question changed. I wasn't wondering why he was defensive anymore. I was wondering what he didn't want me to see. I said quieter, "Dad left Mom $180,000. Ryan stepped into me. "Don't start. I'm not giving you another dollar until I see the account." His hand hit my upper chest first. Not a punch, a shove. I stumbled back into the edge of the counter. Then I said something I would replay for months. "Show me the account, Ryan." His face changed. He grabbed my throat with one hand and pushed me back against the wall. There are things people describe wrong in movies. Choking is one of them. I didn't think, "He's choking me." I thought, "I can't make sound. Then I can't get air." His fingers were hard under my jaw. My hands went to his wrist. I tried to pull him off and couldn't. The room narrowed. There was a roaring in my ears. His face was inches from mine, and he was saying something I couldn't understand. I saw the light above the kitchen table blur. Then Mom screamed his name. Not loudly. She couldn't anymore, but she screamed it. "Ryan!" He let go. I dropped against the counter, coughing, trying to pull air through a throat that felt too small. For several seconds, nobody moved. Ryan looked at his own hand like it belonged to somebody else. Then he said, "You pushed me." I stared at him. Mom said, "Claire, sit down." I didn't. I picked up my bag and left. At urgent care, they took photographs of the marks on my neck and sent me for further evaluation because my voice had gone hoarse and swallowing hurt. I called the police from the parking lot because a nurse asked me if I felt safe going home. The answer was yes. The harder question was whether Mom was safe staying there. Ryan texted me 14 times before midnight. Some were angry, some were apologies. One said, "You know I would never hurt you." Another said, "You came in acting like I stole from Mom." That was the one I kept reading, because I hadn't accused him of stealing. Not once. I had asked to see the account. The next morning, Mom called. Her voice was weak from the ALS, but her tone was still familiar. "Your brother should not have touched you." I waited. Then came the word I knew was coming. "But." I closed my eyes. "But you know what kind of pressure he's been under." For a second, I couldn't speak. He put his hand around my throat. "I know." I couldn't breathe. "I know, Claire. And you're explaining him to me." "I'm not explaining. I'm saying this family is under enormous strain. He has been here every day. He barely sleeps." I looked at the bruises in my bathroom mirror. Mom said, "We still have to figure out the care. That hasn't gone away." I almost laughed. There it was. The same family rule even now. Ryan got context. I got responsibility. Mom's voice softened. "I know you're angry, but you can afford to help." I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and opened my banking app. I searched Ryan's name. For the first time, I started counting. 18 months. $41,800. I checked twice because I thought I had made a mistake. Then I exported the transactions and checked again. $41,800. I sat there staring at the total with the strange embarrassment of somebody discovering she'd been paying for a subscription she forgot she had. Except this wasn't a streaming service. It was my mother. It was medicine and groceries and equipment and care. It was every time Ryan had called and said, "We're short this month." Every time Mom had said, "Your brother's carrying so much." Every time I had moved money out of savings because I could afford it. I didn't regret helping her. I regretted not knowing what I had been helping. That afternoon, I called the home care agency Ryan had named. I didn't accuse him of anything. I said I was Diane Morgan's daughter and that our family was discussing expanded care. The woman I spoke with was careful about privacy, but with Mom's permission later that day, I was able to confirm enough to know 2 things. Mom genuinely needed more help. Ryan's $18,000 demand was not a simple agency invoice. There were expected costs, deposits, scheduling issues, and additional equipment needs, but no single bill that matched the way he had presented it. That didn't prove theft. It proved he had chosen to make me send money through him rather than pay real expenses directly. I called Mom again. "I need to see the trust statement," she sighed. "Claire, please, Mom, Ryan handles that. That's the problem." "No, the problem is that you two have turned my illness into a war." My throat still hurt when I swallowed. I said, "He turned it into a war when he put his hand around my neck." Silence. Then she said, "I don't want to talk about that again right now." That hurt more than I expected. "Then talk about the money. Your father trusted Ryan. Dad trusted all of us. He made Ryan trustee." That was the first time she said it in a way that sounded like rank. Ryan wasn't just helping. Ryan had been chosen. I understood suddenly why every financial question felt to Mom like an insult to him. I said, "Being trustee doesn't mean nobody can ask what the money is for." "Why are you doing this now?" "Because he choked me," I thought. "Because he asked me for $18,000. Because he acted scared when I said $180,000. Instead I said, "Because, Mom, if there is money for your care, I need to know why you need mine." She hung up on me. 2 hours later, she called back. "Come tomorrow," she said. "Ryan won't be here." I almost asked how she could guarantee that. Instead, I said, "Okay." When I arrived, Mom was at the dining table with her tablet propped on a stand. She looked smaller than she had 2 days earlier, though I knew that was probably my mind. Illness has a way of changing shape when you become afraid for someone. "I hate this," she said. "So do I. I don't want you going through everything Ryan does. I'm not asking to inspect his life. It feels like that. Mom, it's your money." She looked away. I didn't push. After a few minutes, she opened an account portal Ryan normally managed. She had access, though she rarely used it. Her hands were weak, so I helped only when she asked. We got through the login process slowly. Then the balance appeared. $384.17. I thought it was the wrong account. "Where's the rest?" Mom stared at the screen. "That can't be right." I refreshed it. "Same number," she whispered. "No, there are moments when anger should arrive and doesn't." I wasn't angry yet. I was cold. "How much did you think was left?" "I don't know. A lot." "How much?" Ryan said. "He said we were still okay." I looked at the transaction history. There were real care expenses. I recognized the wheelchair company, a bathroom contractor, medical transport, an equipment supplier, a home care agency. There were enough legitimate-looking names that for several minutes I felt ashamed again. Maybe this was what ALS cost. Maybe I had marched into Mom's house, accused my exhausted brother without saying the word, and forced a sick woman to look at the cost of her own decline. Mom started crying. Not because she thought Ryan stole from her, because she thought she had consumed everything Dad left. "I'm sorry," she said. "That broke something in me." "For what?" "This disease." "Mom, no. Your father worked his whole life. Stop, and now it's gone." I moved my chair beside hers. For the first time since Ryan attacked me, neither of us was talking about him. I looked at the statement again. $180,000 could disappear through care. I knew that. A progressive disease did not care what sounded like a lot of money to a healthy person. So I did something I should have done before I accused anyone, even privately. I checked. Not everything. Not then. Just enough to see whether the explanation fit. It didn't. Some withdrawals were round numbers. 10,000, 8,000, 15,000. Others went to an account name that didn't sound medical at all. There were transfers on dates when Ryan had told me the trust was locked up for long-term care. There were repeated amounts that didn't match any provider Mom recognized. I wrote nothing down in front of her. I just asked, "Do you know what RMC Services is?" Mom frowned. "Ryan's company." I looked back at the screen. A transfer for $20,000 had gone there 11 months earlier. My body reacted before my mind did. My throat tightened. My palms went damp. Mom said, "He probably paid something through the business." Maybe. I wanted that to be true. I wanted ALS to have eaten the trust, because diseases don't lie. Diseases don't put their hands around your throat. I left Mom's house with one screenshot she had allowed me to take. The balance. $384.17. The trust was empty, but I still didn't know why. I spent the next week doing something Ryan had always accused me of doing too much. I organized. Not secretly, not illegally, not by breaking into anything. I started with my own records. I built a simple timeline of every transfer I had made. Date amount, what Ryan told me it was for. I added the handful of receipts he had texted over the years. I compared those with what Mom remembered, and what providers could confirm when she authorized them to speak with me. I didn't need forensic accounting to see the problem. The problem was repetition. Ryan told me a wheelchair-related expense was $4,000. There was a legitimate wheelchair expense. It wasn't $4,000. He told me home care hours had increased in March. They had. The amount he asked me for was still far above the increase. Again and again, there was enough truth to make the lie believable. That was Ryan's talent. He rarely invented a whole crisis. He took something true and used it to make the next demand sound inevitable. Mom needed help, so I was supposed to send money. He had sacrificed work, so I was not supposed to question what he spent. I lived farther away, so apparently I had forfeited the right to ask. By Friday, I knew ALS expenses could explain a significant amount of the trust. They could not explain all of it. I also knew Ryan had begun calling relatives. My Aunt Linda called me first. She didn't ask how my neck was. She said, "Your mother doesn't need this stress." I almost hung up. Instead, I said, "What exactly did Ryan tell you? That you're freezing the care money?" "I'm not freezing anything. He said you reported him, and now you're refusing to help until he gives you control of the trust. There is no trust left to control." Silence. "What do you mean?" "Ask Ryan." "Claire, don't be dramatic." There it was. Another family reflex so old I could have mouthed it with her. I said, "Did he tell you he choked me?" "He said there was an argument and things got physical." "Things didn't get physical. He put his hand around my throat." Linda lowered her voice. "I'm not defending that." "Then, of course. But he's been taking care of Diane every day for 2 years. I looked out my office window. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to think about your mother." "I am thinking about my mother." "Then don't make her choose between her children." I laughed, one sharp sound. "Funny. Nobody ever tells Ryan not to make her choose." Linda went quiet. Then she said, "You're the reasonable one, Claire." That sentence stayed with me. Not the successful one. Not the distant one. The reasonable one. Which apparently meant I was the person expected to absorb whatever the unreasonable person did. Ryan could choke me, and my job was to preserve family stability. Ryan could hide money, and my job was to avoid upsetting Mom. Ryan could call relatives first, and my job was to explain myself calmly enough that nobody felt uncomfortable. The responsible child is never rewarded with less responsibility. She is rewarded with everyone's leftovers. That night Ryan sent C a message. "You are making Mom think I stole from her," I replied once. "Did you?" He didn't answer. The next morning I drove to Mom's house while Ryan was at a supply store. I had asked Mom if we could talk alone again. She was angry before I sat down. "Ryan says you're trying to bring in somebody to control my money." "I'm trying to understand your money. It's mine." "Exactly." That slowed her. I opened my laptop. "Mom, I'm not asking you to sign anything. I'm not asking you to remove Ryan today. I'm not asking you to choose me. I need one answer." She stared at me. "How much do you think I've been sending?" Her face changed barely. "Why? Please. I don't know. Guess." She became defensive. "I don't keep track of every little thing you do." "Every little thing?" I felt the words physically. "Do you think I send 1,000 a month?" "No, more." She looked confused. "Ryan said you help with groceries and some prescriptions. 500 maybe. Some months more." I said nothing. "Claire?" I turned the laptop. The spreadsheet wasn't fancy, just dates and amounts. Her eyes moved down the column. $1,800, $2,200, $1,500, $4,600, $2,500, $3,100, and on. At the bottom, $41,800. Mom stared. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Finally, she said, "No, that's what I've sent in 18 months. No, Ryan would have told me." "He did tell you." "He said 500. "I know." She looked at me. I watched 18 months of resentment rearrange itself behind her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question made me furious. "I thought you knew. How would I know?" "Because it was for you. You sent it to Ryan, because Ryan told me he was paying your bills." "Why didn't you ask me?" "Because every time I asked about anything you said Ryan handled it." She looked away. There it was. Not a clean victim and a clean rescuer, a system. I had trusted Ryan because Mom trusted Ryan. Mom had ignored my contribution because Ryan described it to her. Ryan stood in the middle and told each of us a version of the other. Mom's voice was very small. "I thought you didn't want to help. I had to stand up." I walked into the kitchen because if I stayed at the table, I was going to say something cruel. For months, I had believed Mom looked at everything I sent and still thought Ryan gave more because his sacrifice was visible. Mom had believed I made $92,000 a year and sent her scraps. We had been resenting each other on information supplied by the same person. When I came back, Mom was crying. She said there was money I let Ryan use. I stopped. "How much?" "After he cut his hours. His company was struggling. He said he couldn't keep taking care of me and keep the business afloat." "How much?" "12,000. "Once?" "Yes." "Did you authorize 20,000 11 months ago?" Her face went blank. "No." 15,000 6 months before that? "No." 8,000? "No." I sat down again. Mom whispered, "What did he do?" That was the first time she asked the question I had been asking. Not what did ALS cost? Not what did Claire refuse? What did Ryan do? And for the first time, Ryan's lie stopped being only about money. He had spent 2 years making sure his mother and his sister never compared notes. Once Mom knew about the $41,800, everything between us changed. So did the danger. Until then, Ryan could tell me Mom needed money and tell Mom I barely helped. He could blame stress, exhaustion, ALS, insurance, inflation, the cost of keeping her home. He could keep each question isolated. Now Mom and I were talking directly. That was the one thing his system couldn't survive. I told Mom I was changing how I helped. I'm not sending money to Ryan anymore. Her shoulders tightened. Claire, I didn't say I'm not helping you. Then what are you saying? I'll pay legitimate providers directly. If you need something, you tell me. If I can help, I will. But I'm done sending money into an account I can't see. She looked exhausted. This is going to make everything harder. I know. Ryan is going to take this personally. He already tried to choke me. She flinched. I regretted the sharpness, but I didn't take it back. A week earlier, I would have softened the sentence for her. I would have protected her from what he did because she was sick. That had been another version of the same family rule. Protect Ryan from consequences. Protect Mom from conflict. Claire can handle it. I said, I love you. I'm not leaving you without care, but I won't finance him. Mom was quiet for a long time. Then she said, okay, not agreement. Permission to proceed without her stopping me. At that point, it was enough. I contacted the home care agency with Mom's authorization and arranged for the legitimate portion of the increased care to be billed in a way she could see. I paid one of the first invoices directly. It was nowhere near $18,000. There were other costs Ryan had mentioned, and some were real. We made a list instead of pretending one giant number meant everything. It felt almost embarrassingly simple, which made me angrier. Ryan had built power out of opacity. The less specific the expense, the easier it was to attach guilt to it. Mom needs care could mean anything. A specific invoice had a number, a provider, a date. It could be paid without handing Ryan control. He realized that almost immediately. His first response was a text. So you're cutting me out after I spent 2 years doing everything? I didn't reply. His second response went to Mom. She called me crying. He says you're trying to replace him. I'm replacing his control over the money. He says you want strangers in the house. We need extra help. Anyway, that's why he asked for $18,000. He says if you keep treating him like a criminal, he can't keep doing this. I closed my eyes. There it was. Caregiving had become a bargaining chip. What does can't keep doing this mean? He didn't say. Ask him. I don't want another fight. Mom, we need to know whether he's threatening to stop helping you. He's angry. So am I. You don't understand what he has given up. The sentence hit me harder than it should have after everything. What have I given up? That's not what I meant. No. Tell me, Claire. I've sent you $41,800. He nearly strangled me. We just learned Dad's trust is gone, and you're still explaining what Ryan gave up. Because he did give things up. I know. That surprised her. I sat down at my kitchen table. I know he did. I know he lost clients. I know he sleeps badly. I know he's here. I know he has helped you get dressed and driven you to appointments and changed his life. I'm not erasing any of that. Then why are you doing this? Because sacrifice is not a license. She was quiet. I continued slower. He can have sacrificed and still have stolen from you. He can be exhausted and still have attacked me. Both things can be true. Mom started crying. I hated myself for making a woman with ALS cry. Then I hated the part of me that immediately wanted to apologize for telling the truth. She said, please don't destroy him over this. I felt something in me go still. Not rage, clarity. Mom, I'm not destroying him. Police are involved. Because he choked me. His business could be ruined. Because he used your trust. We don't know everything yet. Exactly. So why are you already worried about protecting him from what we might find? She didn't answer. I said, I'm going to keep paying the care I agree to pay. I'm not giving Ryan money. I'm not dropping the report. And I'm not pretending the trust doesn't matter, just because the truth might hurt him. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt awful, and I did it anyway. Ryan began calling other relatives. My cousin sent me a message asking why I was trying to put Mom in a facility. My Aunt Linda called again and said Ryan told her I wanted control of the remaining inheritance. There is no remaining inheritance, I said. That's not what he says. What does he say? That you're using a family crisis to take over because you never liked how your father set things up. I laughed. Dad had been dead 4 years. I had never once challenged the arrangement. Ryan's lie worked because it used a recognizable picture. The successful daughter who lived away. The devoted son who stayed. The sick mother trapped between them. If you didn't know the numbers, it was an easy story to believe. I stopped trying to win over the whole family. I had spent my life thinking fairness meant everybody eventually agreeing on the facts. It doesn't. Sometimes fairness is knowing which opinions still get a vote. The relatives who had never asked how much I sent did not get a vote on whether I should keep sending it. The relatives who called choking things got physical did not get a vote on my police report. Mom did get a vote on her care, so I focused on her. We began reviewing records together, and that was when the missing money finally stopped looking like a mystery and started looking like a pattern. We never found one dramatic transfer labeled "Ryan stole this." Real life was uglier and more ordinary. There were legitimate expenses, plenty of them. By the time we had enough records to understand the broad picture, about $61,500 of the trust had clearly gone toward Mom's actual needs: home modifications, equipment, transportation, care, household changes that existed because ALS existed. Another roughly $22,000 sat in a grey area: groceries for a shared household, gas, utility bills. Things Ryan bought while he was doing most of the day-to-day care. Some of it was probably reasonable. Some of it was sloppy. Some of it may have benefited him more than Mom. I could live with grey. The other $96,000 was not grey. It had moved toward Ryan, his business, debt payments, a personal credit line, expenses that had nothing to do with keeping Mom safe. I remember the number because I wrote it on a yellow legal pad: $96,000. I stared at it until it stopped looking like a number and started looking like a decision repeated over and over. Mom sat across from me at the dining table. She looked old in a way I had never let myself see before. Not because of her face, because of the expression. Betrayal ages people quickly. "I gave him 12, she said. "I know. Maybe 13 if there was something else. Mom, I would remember 96. "I know," she pressed her lips together. I thought 12,000 would keep his company alive until he figured things out. That was the first time I understood how Ryan had begun. Not with theft, with permission. Mom had told him that because he had reduced his hours and lost business while caring for her, she would help. In her mind, it was temporary. In his, apparently, it became a principle. I stayed, therefore I deserve compensation. I gave up work, therefore the trust can replace my lost income. Claire left. Therefore Claire can replace the trust. One decision had stretched until it covered everything he wanted. Ryan came over that evening because Mom asked him to. I almost left when I saw his truck. My body reacted before my mind. My chest tightened. My throat felt sore even though the bruising had faded. Mom noticed. "You don't have to be here." I looked at her. "Yes, I do." Ryan entered through the side door like he still owned the rhythm of the house. He stopped when he saw me. "What is she doing here?" Mom's voice was slow but firm. "Sit down." He laughed once. "I'm not doing some ambush." "Sit," he did. The yellow pad was on the table. Ryan looked at it. Then at me. "You went through everything." "Mom did. You manipulated her." Mom said, "I asked Claire to help me understand it." He looked at Mom as if she had slapped him. "After everything I do?" That phrase again. Mom said, "Did you take $96,000? "No." "Then explain it." He looked at the papers. His first move was technical. Some expenses were business-related because his business supported him while he cared for Mom. Some transfers were reimbursements. Some covered lost work. Some paid household costs. He talked for several minutes. The more he talked, the simpler the problem became. Mom had authorized roughly $12,000. Ryan had used far more. I asked, "At what point did she approve the rest?" His head snapped toward me. "You don't get to interrogate me." "I didn't ask you, Mom did." He leaned back. Then the real argument finally came out. "You think she could have stayed in this house without me?" Nobody answered. "You think those agency people would have been here at 2 a.m. when she couldn't get comfortable? You think they would have dealt with insurance? The wheelchair? The bathroom? The appointments? You have any idea how many clients I lost because I was sitting in a neurology office?" I said, "Then why didn't you tell us you needed to be paid?" "Paid? Yes." His face twisted. "This isn't a job. Then why did you take $96,000? He stood up. Mom flinched. So did I, he noticed. For 1 second, shame crossed his face. Then anger covered it. "You got to leave," he said to me. There it was. Not the bills, not the trust, me. You got your career. Your apartment first, then your house. Your weekends, your vacations. You send money and everybody's supposed to clap because Claire wrote another check. Nobody clapped. I stayed here. I know. You don't know." His voice broke. And for the first time, I believed he was telling the truth about that. I didn't know what it was like to watch Mom lose function every day. I didn't know what it was like to sleep down the hall waiting for her to call. I didn't know what he had given up. But he didn't know what I had given either. And neither of those truths turned Mom's trust into his property. I said, You were allowed to be angry. You were allowed to ask for help. You were allowed to tell Mom you couldn't do it anymore. He stared at me. You were not allowed to take her money and make me refill it. His face went red. I kept this family together, Mom said quietly. No. He turned toward her. She repeated it. No, Ryan. He looked stunned. Mom's breathing had become shallow from the stress, and I almost ended the conversation. But she raised one hand. I told you 12,000. Ryan said, You told me to do what I needed to do. I did not tell you 96. You would have been in a facility without me. Mom closed her eyes. Then Ryan said the sentence that destroyed whatever defense he had left. If Claire had just kept paying, none of this would matter. Silence. He heard it too late. I saw the realization on his face. The trust wasn't supposed to last because Claire was the replacement. My salary, my savings, my guilt. The one resource Ryan believed would never run out because the family had spent my whole life teaching me that saying no made me selfish. Mom looked at me, then back at him. You used her money too, Ryan said, for you. She sent $41,800. His face changed. He hadn't known Mom knew. That was the moment I understood why the choking happened. It wasn't rage over an $18,000 bill. It was panic. I had asked to compare two stories that could not survive being placed next to each other. After that dinner, Ryan stopped pretending the problem was accounting. He made it about loyalty. Within 24 hours, 3 relatives called Mom. 2 told her she was being manipulated. 1 told her that if Ryan's business failed because she turned on him, she would lose the only child willing to sacrifice for her. The irony was almost impressive. Ryan had taken money because he was indispensable. Now he was using the threat of becoming unavailable to prove he was indispensable. Mom was shaken. For 2 days, she barely wanted to discuss anything except whether Ryan would still come over. That was the part people outside the family would have found hardest to understand. She knew he had taken money. She knew he had lied about what I sent. She knew he had put his hand around my throat, and she still worried about losing him. But dependence doesn't disappear when the person you depend on betrays you. ALS didn't pause while Mom sorted out whether she trusted her son. She still needed help getting out of bed. She still needed meals, medications, transfers, appointments, and somebody nearby when her body did something she could no longer correct on her own. Ryan had built his power around a true fact. Mom needed people. He had just spent years making himself the person she believed she needed most. So I refused to make the opposite mistake. I did not tell Mom, choose me. I did not move into her house. I did not quit my job. I did not become the next family martyr. Instead, we treated care like care and money like money. The increased home care hours started. I paid the portion I had agreed to directly. Mom used her regular income for some expenses. We began looking at what assistance and support she was already eligible for and what gaps the family actually had to cover. It wasn't effortless. Nothing about ALS is effortless. There were schedule gaps, agency changes, days when Mom hated having strangers in the house, days when I drove 80 minutes after work because somebody cancelled. Days when I resented Ryan because he had once done things automatically that now required 3 phone calls and a calendar. That mattered. Removing Ryan from the center of Mom's care did not make life easy. He had contributed real labor, and his abuse did not erase that. It only meant that labor could no longer buy him control over everybody else. He responded to the new arrangement by withdrawing in small, strategic ways. He skipped a grocery run he had promised to make. He didn't answer one evening when Mom needed help adjusting something. He told her, call Claire. She wants to run things. Mom called me. I heard shame in her voice. Can you come? I looked at the clock. I had an early meeting the next morning. The old Claire would have grabbed her keys before the sentence ended. Instead, I asked, is this urgent? She hesitated. No. Can the evening caregiver handle it? Probably. Then call her. Mom was quiet. I thought she was angry. Then she said, okay, it was such a small moment. But it was the first time I had not allowed another person's discomfort to become my emergency. Ryan hated that even more than the financial questions. Without unrestricted money and instant rescue, he had less to push against, so he pushed the family narrative harder. He told people I was trying to force him out of the house. That wasn't true. The house belonged to Mom. He told people I wanted to put Mom in institutional care. Also not true. He told people I had suddenly become interested in finances after Dad's money disappeared. That one was designed to sound dirty. A cousin asked me, why didn't you care about the trust before? I answered, because I believed my brother. There wasn't much to say after that. The legal side moved slowly in the background. I had photographs from the medical evaluation. The police had my report. Ryan had his version. There were questions, appointments, and eventually consequences I couldn't control. For once, I didn't try to control them. The assault was not my revenge plan. It was something he had done. The financial records were not my revenge plan either. They were something he had done. My decision was simpler. I stopped protecting him from the natural cost of his own choices. A few weeks later, Mom and I sat down again with the records. This time there was no yellow pad. There was a clean summary, money for her actual care. Grey household spending, money that went to Ryan. Mom looked at the total he had taken for himself and said, "I made him think he deserved this." I shook my head. "You didn't make him take it. I always told him he gave more. You believed what you saw. I also told you that you could handle things." I said nothing. She looked at me. I thought that was a compliment. So did I. Being the capable child had once made me proud. I didn't notice when capable turned into available, and available turned into obligation. Mom said, "When Ryan was struggling, I asked what he needed. When you were doing well, I asked what you could give." I looked away because that sentence hit harder than any apology. It named the thing. Not theft, not violence, favoritism. Ryan's difficulty had always been treated as a reason to support him. My stability had always been treated as proof I required less support. Mom reached across the table, but her hand was weak and stopped halfway. "I moved mine the rest of the distance," she said. "I'm sorry. I didn't tell her it was okay, it wasn't. I just held her hand." The final break came because Ryan's business was in worse shape than any of us knew. Once the transfers stopped, the pressure showed quickly. He had been using Mom's trust not just to cover old losses but to keep cash moving. He had used my monthly transfers to relieve pressure elsewhere. Not every dollar I sent went into his pocket, but the system worked because there was always another source. Mom's trust, my checking account. Then, when those ran thin, my savings. The $18,000 demand had not been random. Mom genuinely needed more care at exactly the moment Ryan had finally run out of space to hide the hole. That was the last piece. Why now? Because for the first time, Mom needed money that actually had to go to Mom. Ryan couldn't redirect it. He couldn't delay it. He couldn't cover one account with another and promise himself he would fix everything later. The real need exposed the fake flexibility. He came to the house one Saturday afternoon after Mom told him she wanted to change how her finances were managed. I was there because she asked me to be. So was a neutral advisor Mom had chosen to help her understand her options. I won't turn that conversation into a legal lecture because it wasn't one. The point was simple. Ryan would no longer be the only person standing between Mom and her money. He walked in furious. "This is what you wanted," he said to me. I didn't answer. He pointed at the paperwork on the table. "You're taking over." Mom said, "No, I'm taking over." He laughed. "You can't even type your own passwords half the time." The room went still. Mom's face changed. Ryan hurt himself. For years, he had used her physical weakness to justify authority. Now he had said it plainly. Mom said, "My hands are weak, my mind isn't." Ryan turned toward me. "You put this in her head," I said. "Which part? The part where $96,000 is gone? I told you where that money went. You told us why you think you deserved it." "Same thing." "No," he stepped toward me. Every muscle in my body tightened. He stopped. Maybe he remembered the police report. Maybe he saw Mom watching him. Maybe he finally understood that putting his hands on me again would not reset the room to the old rules. He stayed where he was. Then he said, "Fine. You want to pay strangers to do what I did? Go ahead. See how long Claire keeps writing checks." Mom looked at him. He continued, "She has a mortgage, a retirement account, whatever. She can afford it." There it was. The sentence that had followed me through the entire illness. You can afford it. When I was asked for $1,500. When I was asked for $4,000. When Mom defended Ryan after he attacked me. When relatives explained why I should be reasonable. The phrase had always sounded like math. It had never been about math. It meant, your limits matter less because you have managed yourself well. Mom looked at Ryan for a long time. Then she said, slowly enough that every word landed, "It's not yours to decide." He stared at her. She repeated it. "What Claire can afford is not yours to decide." Ryan's face went red. "What about me?" Mom's eyes filled. "What about you?" "I gave up everything." Mom nodded. "You gave up a lot." He looked almost relieved. Then she said, "And I let that excuse too much." He shook his head. "I kept you here. You helped keep me here. I changed my life." Yes, and she's the hero because she found a spreadsheet. I almost smiled because that was the old competition again. Who gave more? Who sacrificed more? Who deserved credit? Mom did something I didn't expect. She ended it. "This is not about who loved me more." Ryan opened his mouth. She continued, "I gave you $12,000. You took more than $90,000. Claire sent $41,800, and you told me she barely helped. You hurt her when she asked to see the account." He said, "I said I was sorry." "No, you said you were under pressure." Silence. Ryan looked at me. "You really going to let my company die? That was my choice. Not whether police punished him. Not whether Mom forgave him. whether I would do what I had always done when Ryan's consequences became uncomfortable, rescue him. I could have moved money from savings. Not 96,000, but enough to buy him time. Enough to prove I was still the good daughter, good sister, reasonable one. I said, no. One word. He stared at me. I'll help pay for Mom's care when I choose to and when I know what I'm paying for, so you'll let me lose everything. I didn't take your business money. You know what I mean? I do. That was why the answer stayed no. Ryan left. He didn't slam the door. Somehow that made it feel more final. Afterward, Mom cried, not because she wanted me to change my mind, because she finally understood that there was no version of the family left where Ryan controlled everything and nobody paid a price for removing him. The house felt emptier after he left. Ending his control did not erase the space he had filled. The months after that were quieter than the months before. Not easier, quieter. Ryan's role in Mom's daily life shrank. It did not vanish overnight. There were practical transitions, awkward handoffs, care schedules, and days when Mom still wanted him. Because familiarity matters when your own body keeps changing. But he no longer controlled the money. He no longer decided what I knew. He no longer told Mom what I had done for her. And he no longer received a transfer from me because he said the words, Mom needs it. If Mom needed something, we talked. Sometimes I paid. Sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes she used her own income. Sometimes we found another option. The first time I told her, I can't cover that this month, I braced for the old answer. You can afford it. She didn't say it. She asked, what can we do instead? I had to look away. That simple question felt like proof that something fundamental had changed. The legal and financial consequences moved slowly in the background. Not every missing dollar came back, and not every relative decided I had been right, that no longer controlled my choices. Ryan had been telling the truth about one thing. Caregiving had cost him. The lie was deciding that the cost entitled him to take whatever he wanted and make me replace it. His business struggled once the hidden support disappeared. I heard about it through other people. He never called asking me to save it. My relationship with Mom changed more slowly. ALS kept progressing, and some days speaking exhausted her, but the illness stopped being Ryan's private territory. Mom and I finally talked directly about what she needed and what helping her cost me. One afternoon, she asked why I had never told her when the money hurt. Because every time I struggled, somebody else had it worse, I said. She closed her eyes. I didn't need her to argue. A few weeks later, we were at her dining table again. That table had become the center of almost everything. The first trust statement, the $41,800 total, the conversation with Ryan, the decision to change how the money was managed. Now there was one ordinary invoice on it from the home care agency. No mystery, no giant round number. No text from Ryan saying emergency. Mom looked at the amount, then at me. What do you think? Not, can you pay this? Not, your brother has done enough. Not, you can afford it. What do you think? We went through it together. I told her what I could contribute that month. She told me what she wanted prioritized. We made a decision. It was boring. I had never been so grateful for boring in my life. Before I left, Mom said my name. Her voice was softer now, but I still knew when she was serious. Claire. I turned. I used to think Ryan stayed because he loved me more. I didn't know what to say, she continued, and I thought you left because you needed me less. I sat back down. She looked toward the window. I think I punished you for needing me less. That was not exactly right, but it was close enough to hurt. You punished me for looking like I could survive it. She nodded. I'm sorry. This time I said I know. Not I forgive you. Not it's okay. Just I know. Maybe forgiveness would come in some complete form later. Maybe it wouldn't. I had stopped treating closure like another obligation. I still believe in helping family. I still believe illness changes what we owe one another. What I stopped believing was that being capable made my limits less real. Ryan had spent years assuming I would cover every gap. Mom's care, his business, the trust, the family discomfort. Even after he put his hand around my throat, he expected me to help repair the damage his choices had created. I couldn't put the trust back. I couldn't give Mom back the months she spent believing I barely cared. I couldn't undo Ryan's hand around my neck, but I could stop being the replacement fund. I could help my mother because I chose to, with my eyes open, instead of because somebody else had decided I could afford it. Inside our family, that changed everything.